are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God. We are chosen because out of all God's creation, only men, only humankind are made in the image of God. Imago Dei is the Latin translation that's found in Genesis in the creation story. The term Imago Dei refers fundamentally to two things. First, God's own self-actualization through humankind. Second, God's care for humankind. To say that humans are made in an image of God is to recognize the special qualities of human nature which allow God to be manifested in humans, in us. In other words, for humans to have the conscious recognition of their being in the image of God means that they are the creature through whom God's plans and purposes can be made known and actualized. Humans in this way can be seen as co-creators with God. Earlier, I shared that when the team and I were seeking God for a confirmation whether we continue doing conference this year, He not only said, go ahead, but He wants us to change the direction of the conference as a platform from an in-reach to an outreach. We as the church creative community, creators, to build a community for the unchurched creators. We are to build a community where we allow people to come as they are, creative or not. God led us to Gen 1 verse 1 as we seek Him. By the way, the name Gen was inspired by two words, Genesis and generation. And so tonight you'll be hearing me speak from sharing a lot about Genesis, using the verses from Genesis. Because tonight, this conference is literally like a debut for this new direction. And that's why with the two words that inspired the name Gen, our tagline of this platform, of this community, is the rise of a generation. So Gen 1 verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I believe many or all of us have introduced ourselves before to a new community, introduced ourselves to a new group of friends, or to your interviewer at an interview. That what you would share as an introduction of yourself is probably something you hold of high importance, that you want people to know about you, a first impression. So likewise, in the first verse of the first chapter of the first book of the Bible, the introduction, the first impression, God introduced Himself as the creator, because creativity is important to Him. Because being known as the creator, being known as the source of creativity is important to God. Creating the Imago Dei, the image of God in us, which we reflect the essence and the attributes of Him, is important to God. The Imago Dei is what we mankind reflect. Perhaps you feel like, I'm not creative. But because you're created in the Imago Dei, you're made in the Imago Dei, you are creative. The essence, the attributes of who God is in you. It's part of who you are. It's who you are because you are made in the Imago Dei. The moment God breathed life into you, everything about you reflects that. The likeness, the image, which means everyone, whether you feel creative or not, whether you are in a creative industry or not, you are creative in one way or another. And that means creativity isn't limited to the arts and entertainment or the media industry. If you create a solution, if you come up with answers to social issues, to economic issues, to anything that has an issue, and you have answers for, you're creative. That's creativity. Italian inventor Alessandro Volta developed the first practical method of generating electricity. Thomas Edison created the first light bulb. We are able to travel around the world today. We are able to offer jobs to people to be like an air steward, a pilot, and an air stewardess because of the Wright brothers who invented the first plane. Okay, with all that you said, Cyril, how is the theme of this conference, the core and image of God, Imago Dei, connected or linked? I'm glad you asked. Go with me to Genesis 1, verse 26 to 31. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Then in verse 31, it says, "Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good." We see that in the first verse of Genesis, not Gen Conference, Genesis 1, that God introduced himself as the creator, as the source of creativity. And in a few verses down, God said, "Let us make man in our image. Let us make man according to our likeness." And everything else he created before mankind was good. But after he created mankind, God said it was very good. Why? Because God created men in the image of God. He created men in the Imago Dei. And then he put a call on our lives, which is to be fruitful and multiply. It is to fill the earth and subdue it. It's to have dominion over every living thing on the earth. But God had to make us first in his image. He had to make us in his image in order for us to rule and reign and have dominion. He had to make us in his image in order for us to fulfill the call on our lives. So we learned about the call earlier in its theological significance. The call and its connection with election is that we are made in the Imago Dei, for we are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, who expresses and reflects the essence, the attributes and the nature of God. Then comes the call and its connection with vocation, where God strategically given us specific and unique gifts to rule and reign and have dominion over the earth, to be the salt and light of the world, the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, so that we, not just the creative community in the church, but the church community who expresses that Imago Dei, the expression of creativity, can point the broken, the lost, the reject, the hurt back to Jesus. Then the call and its connection with worship is that knowing your vocation, knowing you're elected, that when we call out to God, it's because we're calling out to God for his anointing, his presence, for his wisdom, to teach us how he wants us to fill the earth, to subdue it, to have dominion that reflects the Imago Dei. Can you see now how the Imago Dei, the image of God and the call on our lives are connected?